Welcome back for our second segment. We're going to talk about preps, or junior golf, if you will. It is quite an interesting, a very complicated, if you will, scenario. I'm Pete Fox, Marc Lecair, and joining us here, the head coach of the boys and girls golf team at Cerritos High School, Tim Paulson. And
Nice,
Tim's been there for a long time.
Forever.
I hear you're about ready to retire. Is that true?
I did last year. I did this year. I coached this year out of retirement.
So you had a very good year with your boys and girls. I know your number one boy, Kevin Lee, got to the regionals and won a tournament that was pretty tough to win based on who he beat. For one, Preston Valder, who plays at Servite. For two, Brian Campbell. Had to be quite a thrill for you as the coach and for Kevin as the player.
Yeah, I followed them along, all along the way, and I had two kids that both qualified. And Kevin he was on his game. There's not much you can say. When you're on your game one day, good things happen.
Now, when he gets to that level and he's playing that well, how much of you as the coach are involved in his round at that point in time? Are you just observing, or does he come to you and say, "Help me with this"?
They're making some changes in the CIF, but at that tournament I can't say anything. I
Really?
could just give him encouragement and watch, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So you're an average fan at that point.
Yeah.
You're hoping whatever
Yeah.
you told him leading up to that day was good enough to get him through.
Every league has a different rule about coaching
Okay.
their players during a match, and I think they're changing the rules where you can say things to them in between holes, which is a good thing. Not
Sure.
during a hole. I'm against that, but during in between holes is fine.
Hey, if a caddy can do it, why not a coach?
Yeah, they don't have caddies. That's
Right.
For sure.
So he won the regionals, and then
he won a sectional, I guess you could say.
And then from then, the next course was Industry Hills, and he had a tough time there. Didn't qualify to go on to the SCGA High School Championship and then on to the state championship,
Yeah.
correct? So what was it about Industry Hills that he had a tough time with?
It's a shorter course, but it's narrow, and the greens were tough to putt. He seemed to hit the fairways. He was doing well for the first 3 or 4 holes, as far as I know. Then I had a break. I had to go duty somewhere, and then the next time I talked to him, he was over par, 2 or 3 over. So somewhere along the line, he had some problems.
Yeah, that's the thing I find interesting about golf at this level is one day they can be on fire, and then the next day they're nowhere to be found. And I guess that's pretty much standard for everyone's golf game. I mean, one day it's there and one day it's not. I mean, when you see that Preston Valder and Brian Campbell were in that tournament and he beat them, I find that to be pretty interesting. You also hear the name Bo Hostler Jr., who played in the U.S. Open and didn't make the cut, but Bo Hostler was in these tournaments as well. And here's a guy who was at the U.S. Open and other guys were beating him left and right. I mean, he was finishing middle of the pack.
I don't even think Kevin knew who was there and what it meant. He was so locked into his game. He was focused, and I think he had a week to think about what he had done and to go on to the next round, what he needed to do there. And that might have affected him.
Well, Tim, at this level, how much of it is dictated by the actual lay of the course instead of the player's ability overall to be a good golfer? I mean, like you alluded to a minute ago, it's one course is a little bit more narrow, some are a little bit wider, some of them have smaller greens, and it's a little bit more difficult to chip in certain areas. There's going to be some things that, because these guys aren't pros, these are still very amateur, very young golfers, how much of the course really dictates play?
Well, they'll make it tough. There's no doubt about it. For our divisional, we play Lakewood, and they moved it all the way back to tees that we never played during the course of the season. They added maybe 400 or 500 yards to the course.
Wow.
And it's completely different. They did that at Industry as well. There's 2 courses there. They played the easier of the 2, but they played the narrower of the 2, so you really had to be straight off the tee, and a lot of golfers were using irons off the tee just to keep it in play.
Wow.
And is that one of the reasons that the golfers at this age play so many of these tournaments, qualifiers, amateur events? There's so many events around. It's really hard to keep track of them all and what they mean and what it qualifies them for. Is that why they're out there so much, just to get a wide variety of
Well, they
experience?
have to do these tournaments to get to the top level. And my girls, for instance, the first 2 years they went all the way to state. We finished 3rd in the state 4 years ago. The first year I had this one group of girls that are really great, and then the next year we finished 4th in the state. And to go all that way, you had to finish at least in the top third in every tournament you played. They practice a lot too. They practice every single day. They work on every aspect of their game.
And speaking of the girls, you had Beverly Varatanga Nugulkit.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Who did very well this year as well.
Yes.
Tell us about her season.
She won the girls equivalent to what Kevin won, and she went on to finish maybe 15th or 20th in individuals. She has a full ride to the good Davis. So out of my top 5, I had 3 graduate, and all 3 have full rides too.
Now, after the high school level, what do you suggest to your players is the proper way to go as far as furthering their game, getting a proper education? Do you encourage them to go maybe on the higher level of the amateur circuit? Do you encourage the collegiate level? Which route do you?
If they can get into college, they should always go to college.
Okay.
You can't give up free education.
Sure.
Especially in the times we have now. It's even harder. It's more expensive. So to get a free education out of it when you come out, it's worth a lot of money to you for the rest of your life. And to get full rides, even to get partial scholarships, it's good.
How much does that collegiate competition prepare them to eventually maybe one day compete at the professional level?
Well, I'm sure for most it means a lot. For people like Cantley or some of the other ones that are really young on the tour that have gone straight into the pros right out of high school. They've had a lot of success, but for the most part, they want to make sure that they have an education. That's something to fall back on.
With regard to, speaking of golfers we were talking about this earlier, golfers on the tour that are successful and you know, garnering a lot of attention right now. Rory McIlroy at 22 years old, which is not really all that far from where your kids are.
No, yes,
about 4 years probably. What sort of what sort of draw and how is he moving the meter with your kids?
I think what they learned about him is how he can have a bad round and lose the Masters, and then turn it around and win something like the U.S. Open in record fashion. It's how you don't get angry at yourself, that you go back and work on your weaknesses to improve yourself. Anger on the course is something that, you know, I can testify to that.
I think we all can.
We can all relate to that.
Worst attitudes sometimes when I get angry in the past, but that's the one thing I know from experience. It's not what you don't want to do.
So they are paying attention to Rory McIlroy. They know who he is. He draws attention at that level for the high school kids, right?
Oh yeah. He learns from every bad shot he makes. He learns from every good shot he makes. A bad shot doesn't make him angry. It educates him. It becomes a better golfer for him. And anybody that does that, if you look at Cantley and any of the other great ones that have come up, and a lot of them that are still in college, it's the same thing. You just can't get angry at missing the shot.
That's the takeaway message, I guess. Mark, stop throwing your balls across the course.
Get angry.
You know, I tried to break one over my knee. It was titanium.
I hold a
didn't work
record
out
for
well.
throwing one.
Yeah,
very nice.
That's
Long
interesting when
time
you could
ago.
throw it farther than you hit it off the tee, right? Well, Tim Paulson, head coach at Cerritos High School. Will you be back to coach next year after you're
not
into
sure.
retirement?
Not sure. I might end up in Trilogy in La Quinta.
Very good. Love that course. Well, thanks for stopping by. We appreciate it. Enjoyed the talk. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.